Hey, Earthfolk! I trust you're having the spookiest day. I count down the top 10 Sega horror games as voted on by my Instagram followers. There's only 2 rules. The game must have been on a Sega console, or developed and or published by Sega. Watch out for zombies, and let's go!
Rise from your grave.
Let's kick things off with a classic Altered Beast, first released on the arcade system, Sega System 16, before hitting the Mega Drive and the Genesis, and now on pretty much every console you can think of. For a game with so many ports, it doesn't actually get that many great reviews, but somehow it's now a Sega classic. In this side-scrolling beat-em-up, you are resurrected and battle through 5 levels to rescue the goddess Athena. Collecting the spirit balls allows you to turn into a werewolf, transition, or even transform. And a couple other ones as well. But you know, I was not a fan of this game growing up. I just didn't like it. But it's at number 10, so it's fine, so let's get on to the next one. Being pretty violent, at least for a video game of its time, Night Trap appeared on the Sega CD and caused such an upset it was talked about at the United States Senate Committee about video game violence. And even Nintendo themselves stated that the game would never appear on a Nintendo system, which some say it was because it didn't live up to the higher moral standards Nintendo stood for. All that actually did though was cause more publicity and sell more copies. Oh, and by the way, feel free to download this game on your Nintendo Switch now. I guess Nintendo really does what Sega do? I don't know. Well, if you thought Night Trap was a bit too violent, you might want to look away now. Condemned 2 is a psychological horror game where in first person mode you beat the out of the enemies and smash them with weapons. Pretty much anything you get your hands on, from a toilet seat to a door, you can smack them with. I put this game above the first Condemned game just as it fixes a lot of the issues with the first. There's a better crime scene investigation and now chain combos and such like when fighting. Great atmosphere and sound, and definitely worth a look if you like your games with a little bit extra more violence. It's not really my sort of game. It is a little bit too violent for me, you know, it's just, but let's see what's next. Now, this is more like it, back to classic Sega action. What do you get when you cross the House of the Dead with a classic Sega beat 'em up? You get Zombie Revenge. Now, I am trying to stick with one game per franchise, but this is a spin-off. Hey, we might see the House of the Dead later on again. But Zombie Revenge, first released in the arcades and then on Dreamcast, you punch and kick and use a variety of weapons you find along the way. It might not have had glowing reviews on release, but look at it. Looks great. And cheesy voice acting just like the House of the Dead. At number 6, enter Deep Fear, a Resident Evil style survival horror game for the Sega Saturn, released in 1998. And it was also the last Saturn game released in Europe. The story takes place 300 meters below the surface of the Pacific in a naval fueling research facility called the Big Table. And you have to keep an eye on your air and refill low oxygenated areas so that you don't die. A mutation has spread across the facility, turning humans, both alive and dead, into grotesque creatures. The game has some excellent atmospheric music and an awesome story, but something you may not know about this game, it was never released in the US, unfortunately. If you're enjoying this video, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you don't miss out on any future Sega videos heading your way from the intergalactic. Into the top 5 Sega horror games. Now, while Deep Fear never hit the shores of the US, a game that never made it to Europe was Illblade, another survival horror game released on the Dreamcast in 2001. Illblade is now a bit of a cult classic, being a standout game for its B-movie style comedy horror. The game features 6 stages set in movie theatres or theme parks, or so I think. I don't really know what's going on in this game, but you have to find your friends and defeat the boss and try not to get killed. You need to first locate the horror monitor so you can find traps, items and enemies, but at the cost of adrenaline. I don't know, the game reminds me of a ghost train and I've got a cough. with things jumping out at you but don't get too scared, or your pulse goes up too high and boom, you die. Loads of monsters, loads of blood, loads of traps, and the last level is a parody of Toy Story. Still no idea what's going on here, but it's definitely a unique experience. One series I got to admit I'd hardly even seen much of until I asked Instagram for the favourite Sega horror games is Splatterhouse. And here is Splatterhouse 2, a side-scrolling beat-em-up. For 1992, it was pretty violent and a creepy game, with lots of splattered monsters, all dispatched of in gruesome ways, and the bosses are pretty disgusting too. The story is about a guy called Rick, who is suffering from guilt and nightmares after not being able to save Jennifer. The terror mask appears and tells Rick to get his stuff together and says Jennifer doesn't have to die. The game is full of monsters, the stages look great, the gameplay may be a bit sluggish, but the gore, soundtrack and artwork makes up for that. Now a cult classic, Splatterhouse 2 also has a sequel on the Mega Drive and Genesis, but be warned, these games are hard as nails. Now we are almost there. This is number 3 in the top 10 Sega horror games, and it's none other than Alien Isolation, a game I've played recently on my channel. Check out the link in the card above or in the description. Okay, so this game is not much fun. It's just it's too scary to be fun, and it keeps you in a tense state all the way through while playing, but somehow I just wanted to keep playing. It's an action game with plenty of stealth and survival horror features. It is pretty awesome, and maybe I'm not quite right in saying it's not much fun. If you can keep your head about you and figure out how to survive, you are in for one roller coaster of a ride. The main story is about 20 hours, so 20 hours of being chased down by an alien. It's a unique game, and the AI and design of the alien has made it one of the best enemies I've ever seen in a game. If this was a list of the scariest horror games, it would be at number 1, no doubt about that. Here it is, Resident Evil, released first on the PlayStation, but then brought to the Sega Saturn with extra features. It was neck and neck between this game and Code Veronica for the number 2 spot, but as I mentioned before, I'm keeping it to one game per series, otherwise Code Veronica would also be high up on this list. The Resident Evil series is probably the best horror game series ever made, no doubt about it, probably. And the game is awesome on the Saturn, as it included an unlockable battle mode with also extra exclusive enemies found inside it, but in the main game there was also other exclusive enemies and additional outfits for the characters you didn't find on PlayStation. Still, the game is great on PlayStation and Saturn, and on the number of other systems the game also appears on. If you've never played Resident Evil and you're a horror fan, what's going on? You owe it yourself to experience the game that brought zombies back into the home again in the late 90s. For everyone else, I'll just shut up and let you watch a few more seconds. Just the number 1 best Sega horror game remains, but first, here are some very honourable mentions. Of course, there are many other great horror games I've not mentioned in this top 10, so please do let me know in the comments what your favourites are and tell me which ones I've missed. I'm sure I've missed some. It's been a load of fun putting together this video, and thank you to all my Instagrammers for helping me create this list. By the way, head over to SegaUniverse.com, that's SegaUniverse.com, to vote on more upcoming top 10 countdown videos on Sega and Sonic topics, coming very soon to this channel. The link is below in the description, so check it out, that would be awesome. And that brings me to wishing you all a scary Halloween, and enjoy it the best you can. So what is the top Sega horror game? The House of the Dead is awesome. While Resident Evil brought zombies to the home again, The House of the Dead also did the same, but maybe more so to the arcades, featuring 5 main title games and a load of spin-offs, not least the Typing of the Dead games where the keyboard is your weapon of choice, and games like Zombie Revenge, which also made this list. But it's The House of the Dead 2, which takes the top spot, often touted by some as the best light gun game of all times, and certainly the best in the series. This game is hard, but it's an absolute classic, full of cheesy dialogue. The game is a blast on Sega Dreamcast 2, and it's also available on the Nintendo Wii. The music is great too, and the game is probably best played with a friend in 2-player mode, unless your friend can't tell the difference between zombies and civilians, that is. The game features multiple routes and you will require multiple playthroughs to get to the end boss because this game is hard, I said that before. Enemies come at you fast, but it's still a blast to play. Is The House of the Dead 2 the best in the series? Does it deserve the top spot? Only you know that. Let me know down below in the comments, and also check out my other horror themed videos I've put up this Halloween season. Thanks for watching, I'm Melton and I'll see you in the next video.